The BTO Sunday recap final episode. I'm already laughing because we have Gabe here in the comments dropping before we even start. I don't even know how this is possible.
Is it too late for you, Gabe? What are we doing here? Come on.
Come on, guys. And now he's ready to go. So this is the Super Bowl recap. This is our final one. And I would normally come on, give you a little recap of what happened, sum it up before we talk. But Mike, who has been boasting his 5-0 record in the Super Bowl, now 5-1. So I'll let you start with what you took away from this one.
I took a chance, obviously going against the GOAT, or one of, the second GOAT, I would say, and Pat Mahomes. I took a chance, and listen, 5-1 still pretty good in the last 6, but Kevin, I'm thinking back, and I took notes down early in this game in the first half, and I wrote 49ers defense came to play in all caps. And thinking back to that moment right now, remembering how they played in that first half, to think they lost this game right now is just absolutely shocking.
Yeah, they had a great first half, man. And Andy Reid was sloppy in the first half. Overall, the Chiefs just were not ready, and the Niners were ready. But it's the same story as all year, but almost a tale of two halves being flipped for the Chiefs, where the first half they only had 3 points. Normally they struggle in the second half on offense. But it's the same story as the whole year. The defense kept them in it until the offense can figure it out. And, man, the Chiefs' defense was spectacular tonight. I talk about him all the time. We all do. We're not the only ones talking about him. Steve Spagnuolo is probably the greatest coordinator, and really as a specialty coordinator, because there's been so many great head coaches that were great coordinators, but he's probably the greatest specialty coordinator of all time. A guy that you really don't think is a head coach, but man, can he coach his side of the ball. And 4th ring for him as a coordinator, 2, one with the Giants, beat the 07 Patriots, and then, of course, 3 here with Kansas City now. And he bottled up Shanahan, man. He totally out-schemed Shanahan.
He did. I mean, just thinking back to that game, you're up 10-0. You're San Francisco. You're up 10-0 in this game. You have chances in that second quarter, possibly to put them away. You have chances in the first half. You get the ball back. It's 10-3 after they go 3 and out on their first possession. You have a chance to, extend your lead, take command of this football game, and they were unable to do that. So, this is going to be a game of missed opportunities for Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy and this 49ers team. Just you're 100% right. Spags kind of dialed himself back in after what was a really good first quarter for Brock Purdy and that 49ers offense. Kevin, they were rolling. I'm watching that game, and I'm like, these Purdy haters must be just be like, oh my God, what am I watching? I'm sitting there laughing as a Purdy defender. Look at this guy go. And then in that second quarter and beyond, was not good.
No, Purdy fell off after the first quarter of that game, which was unfortunate to see because he was really settled in. He looked great, and he looked comfortable. And I tell you, the offensive line for San Fran was bullying up front in the entire first half. Purdy had a lot of time, but I think, and it's going to be so nuts to say because there was a long game afterwards. So much happened. But one of the major turning points is San Fran on their opening scripted drive going right down the field and fumbling. And the best player in the entire league fumbles on the opening drive to lose it when you're knocking on the door for a touchdown to start that game. And no doubt in my mind, they would have scored. They were ripping off 12, 15 yards of play to open up that game. Shanahan had a great script in, great week of prep. 2 weeks of prep to get that drive and take that ball and score. And if McCaffrey doesn't fumble that game, fumble that ball to start the game, I'm fully convinced that the 49ers are the Super Bowl champion. However, that's not what happened. The Chiefs make the play, and the Chiefs win the Super Bowl.
And then Pacheco, a couple of drives later, he fumbles the ball in a big spot too. It's like these 2 running backs that you trust big time, they cough up the football. So, yeah, that was brutal because they were moving the ball. They were moving the ball that entire first quarter. And for them to lose this game, I mean, I don't even want to blame Shanahan here. I'm not going to blame Shanahan. I just think this was a, kind of a Chiefs Mahomes moment, Andy Reid and whatnot. And give credit to that defense, man. That Chiefs defense was on, like you mentioned, unreal late in this game. And, Purdy was settling in. I mean, Shanahan did such a great job early in this game to let his quarterback settle in. His heart's racing, even though he's been cool, calm, and collected. And he looked cool, calm, and collected throughout the entire game. But Shanahan let him settle in. Nice, easy plays, nice, easy throws. And he made a couple of nice throws early, but not enough. It's not enough to beat
No,
this team.
He not only did he not make enough good throws, he missed a lot of open receivers in that second quarter, third quarter, when I thought they could have started to put the game away. He missed a lot of receivers.
He missed Debo open in the end zone. He was being pressured, but he missed Debo open.
He missed Debo open bad. But overall, I mean, the throw to Ayuk over the top, I don't know if you remember that in the first half. That was a little bit of a miscommunication, I think, on the route with Ayuk. But still, these are plays that have to be made, and that I think the Chiefs make more times than not. I think that the Patriots made more times than not throughout their dynasty. And that's where, I said a few weeks ago, if the difference between McVay and Shanahan with their ring is McVay went out and got a Hall of Fame talent at quarterback. Whether you want to say he's a Hall of Famer or not is a different story, different conversation. I'm not going down that path right now. But Stafford's an elite quarterback, and he's an elite passer, and he makes all the throws. So McVay went out and said, we have to get this guy. And he did. And, in 2 Super Bowl trips for Shanahan, both against the Chiefs, you kind of leave there saying if they would have been more aggressive in their pursuit of an elite quarterback that's proven, then maybe they would have won not only one, but 2 Super Bowls.
I mean, think of that. What was it? The post route that Jimmy G missed, I think Sanders on in that Super Bowl when they were up.
Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah. So you think back to, I think more so the Debo play than the Ayuk play. I do think that was a miscommunication, and I do think he was being pressured, but like Debo was wide open for a little while. You got to float that ball up into the end zone. We're talking about a completely different game here. So give credit to the Niners. They did some things right. Their special teams, which I was incredibly concerned about coming in, and was really almost one of the reasons why I almost switched my pick to Kansas City earlier in the week, was because the special teams advantage I thought Kansas City had over San Francisco was large. But Jake Moody came to play. I mean, I know that missed extra point kills him. I don't know if you want to blame him or just the line in general, but the special teams came to play for San Francisco, and the quarterback, I guess you could say, left them a little bit to desire.
Well, I'm going to almost disagree with you because of the punt return.
Oh, the fumble. I forgot about the fumble,
which I'm assuming you forgot about by saying that. I
completely forgot about the fumble,
The Moody extra point, I'm not going to blame on him, but I will always say this. Extra point misses in close games always bite you in the ass, man. And that game may or may not, I would it have shocked me if the Chiefs score at the end of the game with the 6 seconds left. No, it wouldn't have shocked me, but that 1 point is the difference from the Chiefs being able to tie the game and having to go. A 4-point game and a 3-point game is just
huge,
incredible difference, especially with the climate of that game where neither team can really punch into the end zone. And even when they're getting down to the red zone, there were a couple turnovers in the red zone today, and they just weren't having success down there. And they were getting there, weren't having success, but the missed extra point's huge. But the special teams blunder is massive because it does hit off of the blocker.
Yes.
It hits the blocker, so you have to go make a play on the ball. But to try to scoop it is football 101. You don't try to scoop that. You got to dive on that football.
Yeah, that's my mistake. I forgot about that play completely, which leads to the first touchdown. You got to fall on that football. I mean, you just have to fall on it. I mean,
the Chiefs may not have. Sorry to interrupt you. The Chiefs may not have scored a touchdown in regulation if they didn't muff that punt and turn it over.
Yeah, it swayed the momentum all the way over to the Chiefs side, where if there was still any momentum, even though the offense was struggling for San Francisco, the momentum completely shifted over there to the Kansas City side. It's just an absolutely brutal play. It hurts him. And the punt return, I mean, I remember just watching the game. Everybody's like, why did he do that? Why did he, try and pick it up? He saw that it hit his teammate's foot.
Mm-hmm.
Really tough to see in real time, but when you saw the replay, it clearly hits the foot. So the punt return was that McLeod. He was the right idea. Just got to fall on it.
All right, so Christian McCaffrey had 30 touches today. in this
Yeah.
game. But call me nuts. He needed more. There was a lull in the second and third quarter when it came to McCaffrey getting the ball. I did not think Shanahan balanced the middle of regulation well. I
No.
thought Purdy was dropping back way too much because you have to notice that point where Purdy is struggling. He's not playing great. He's not throwing it too accurate. And when you're in that third quarter and you're still dropping him back over and over and over again and running on obvious downs, you're setting your team up for failure because McCaffrey getting creative with him was the real catalyst to your whole season. Also, in this game, I mean, losing Dre Greenlaw, losing Kittle, the way they lost Dre Greenlaw was just so unfortunate.
Heartbreaking.
A non-contact injury on a grass field, jogging on to go play defense. I mean, you just don't see that ever. So that was heartbreaking. One of the best players in the entire league. And then to lose Kittle down in the red zone in overtime really kills you.
And then that holding on the tight end where Kittle then comes on after that play. The thing I'm saying to myself is, why is the backup tight end? So you brought Kittle back, onto the field of play, onto the sideline, excuse me, put him back in the game. I mean, he's such a great run blocker. It's not like you're taking Kelsey out, or Kelsey's out now. He's got to come back in. Like Kittle is a major part of your run game. Put Kittle back on the field the second he's ready to go. He's got the okay to go back on the field. The tight end has the holding that messes up that entire drive there.
While we're talking tight end, how about Kelsey exploding on Andy Reid on the sideline? I mean, I'm not going to make too much of a deal of it because things get heated on the sidelines, but to see that happen so early in the game on a run play. I mean, Kelsey, I know he wasn't on the field, but it's a run play that the running back fumbles. You might not have even been involved in the play at all if you were out there. Don't walk over and rip in and lay into Andy Reid, who has really, as great as Kelsey is, has really made the career of not only you, but almost every single guy on that team. I mean, Andy Reid has turned some of these guys that shouldn't have been much of anything into absolute household names.
Yeah, I did not like that at all. I mean, it's just a total lack of disrespect, even if he doesn't mean it. Total lack of respect on Kelsey's part there. You're 100% right. What would have he done on that play anyway? Just wasn't a good look at all. And I understand they have a close relationship and whatnot, but you don't like to see that. I mean, this is, we're talking about Andy Reid, one of the greatest coaches of all time. I don't care who you are, Travis Kelce. You don't do that. So I happen to really like Travis Kelce. I did not like that, though. You're 100% right.
I think now, Andy, we talk about this with the legacies, right? Andy Reid is one of the 7, 8 greatest coaches of all time now. There's a lot of great coaches. There's a lot of guys that I would put ahead of Andy Reid, but he has just done an incredible job throughout his entire career. It's tough because we're going to sit here and I don't even want to say we've been critical of Shanahan, but we've kind of talked about the fact that he does need to win a Super Bowl, because if he doesn't win a Super Bowl, you end up like Marty Schottenheimer, who nobody talks about to this day. Marty Schottenheimer, who was a great head coach. You win a lot of games. You have a lot of really fun teams to watch. But if you don't win the ring, you're not remembered. You have to win the ring.
Yeah.
And Shanahan's kind of going on that path, but it's tough to win the Super Bowl. It's really difficult to win the Super Bowl. And it's nice to see Andy Reid to have now had this dynasty that he'll always be not even tied to, but credited for.
Yes, 100%. I mean, you're credited for the draft pick and the development of possibly, the greatest quarterback of all time. You give him credit for that. It's funny, Shanahan kind of seems like he's on that Andy Reid path because, Reid struggled late when he got in the playoffs. He had lost the Super Bowl early. I'm pretty sure that was to New England, correct? He had lost one when he was in Philadelphia. So he had gotten to the big game. He lost. He's in the playoffs. He's losing. It's kind of that same path that Andy Reid was on now. Yeah, Shanahan has gone deeper into the postseason and lost some heartbreakers, 100%. But Kyle Shanahan, he's going to have to win one. We had spoke about it, a few weeks back, that possibly if he would have lost that Packer game, would have we had some heat on him or not? I don't think there's going to be any heat on him, but you're right. I think legacy-wise, like, you got to get there. And I think he's on this Andy Reid sort of path here.
I'm also going to just throw a quick, well, first of all, I talk about staff building often, and I love great staff builders. And Andy Reid, prime example of great staff building with Steve Spagnuolo. Even, you could make fun of Matt Nagy all you want. That's a great offensive coordinator to have when you're the one calling the plays. That's a terrific guy to have running your offense in practice every day while you have to do your head coach stuff. But Shanahan has Steve Wilks here at defensive coordinator. Now, it's tough to get a better guy than Steve Wilks when you've lost Robert Saleh, when you've lost DeMeco Ryans. So Shanahan's has incredible turnover every year on his staff with guys Mike McDaniel leaving and all of these guys leave and bring half of Shanahan's staff with them, and he's got to replace. And so it's not easy. Steve Wilks had a couple critical errors today and a couple different third downs and the prime one was in overtime on the completion. It was the drag to Rice. He was coming left to right, and he probably got 15 yards on 3rd and 8, I want to say. You can't blitz Mahomes, man. You cannot blitz Mahomes, and letting him run free, not having contain options. Mahomes is great, so I'm not going to sit here and say, I could have stopped him, and what is Steve Wilks doing? But you cannot blitz Patrick Mahomes in those big spots.
No, you can't. You give credit to Shanahan, though, like you mentioned, he's got to replace all these guys. This is kind of the one where, I think we're kind of shaking our head, right? Like, well, maybe he didn't replace him here, didn't replace with the right guy. It was at DeMeco he replaces. So, yeah, can't do that. We haven't spoken about Mahomes yet. I mean, we're 16 minutes into this. We haven't spoke about Mahomes. By the way, don't call me. They gave him the MVP, correct? I did not see
the MVP, yes.
Official announcement. Okay. So he's the MVP. Now, is this his 3rd MVP?
3rd Super Bowl MVP. 3 Super Bowl wins.
I mean, when are we going to see? I'm not there yet, right? I'm not one of these guys that could say he's better than Brady just yet. He's on the path, and he's doing it at a higher level than Brady was at this point in his career.
Mm-hmm.
You win me one more, maybe 2 more, get 4 or 5 rings. I'm willing to say you are the greatest of all time. But I don't think we've never seen a start like this in anybody's career, maybe in sports history. I mean, have we?
The closest thing is Brady to it. Probably Derek Jeter would be a close one. First 5 years in the league, he wins 4 titles. So Jeter would be a close one, but Jeter wasn't the player Mahomes was relative to his counterparts. I mean, Mahomes is far and away the best player in the league. Jeter wasn't. So Brady wasn't either. Here's the thing about Brady. I was having this discussion tonight, and Brady was never the MVP guy. So he was the best quarterback forever. We would have rather had him than Manning or Rodgers, Favre. You would have rather had Brady because you just knew when it gets tough and when you need plays, he's the guy that makes them. But Brady was never the most talented regular season quarterback, the most dominant, but Mahomes does it the whole year. And so Brady never, in the regular season, he never felt better than Manning in the regular seasons.
Mm-hmm.
But you get what I'm saying? And Mahomes, but the whole year, you just know that Mahomes is the best guy and that nobody's better than him, because even we spoke about this with Lamar. When Lamar lines up opposite Mahomes, he knows I'm inferior. When Josh Allen's the closest guy.
Allen's the closest.
I thought it was Burrow, and Burrow's great, but with the injury history now with Burrow, I can't put him there. Allen's the contender to Mahomes, but he's just, I don't know, but Mahomes just feels a lot better.
The gap between Mahomes and then the next guy, I mean, and, second best player in the league is probably the biggest gap in any sport we've seen in a while. Mahomes is just far and away better than every other player in the league. Like, there's no doubt about it. When you talk about the best player in the league, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. In the NBA now, you could say a bunch of different guys. In baseball, I mean, Ohtani, sure, but there are different guys you can make arguments for. With Mahomes, there's no argument. I mean, he is the standard. I think Romo said this. He is the standard. He's your Michael Jordan. And my view on sports, Kevin, this is my view on sports. I got people texting me, uncles, whatever, family members, friends. Can't stand Mahomes. Can't stand Mahomes. You know, he's in that villain territory. My personal outlook on sports, unless you're a close rival of one of my teams, I like to see greatness. I want to see the greatest players that have ever played the sport play. And I like to witness, you know, the greatness that we're seeing with Patrick Mahomes, just like I like to watch it with Tom Brady, and just like I like to watch it with LeBron James. So when you have a chance to witness greatness, and that is Patrick Mahomes, just enjoy it and be lucky that you were able to see it. That's my view on sports, and that's my view on Mahomes right now.
Well, I think we feel the same way about that because and I'm not going to try to sound corny here, but when you do passionately love the game that's being played and love watching it, to see someone do it flawlessly or as close to perfect as you can get is always just a blast. It's a pleasure to watch. And I would say this too about the Mahomes dynasty. I can't stand this guy. Every decade since the Super Bowl era, and even before that, you have dynasties. And it's been a lot of different teams. 70s, you have the Steelers. 80s, you have the 49ers. 90s, you have the Niners win a couple more. The Cowboys are the big one. 2000s, Patriots. 2010s, Patriots. 2020s, now it's the Chiefs. So you always have that team with a target on their back. And it's in every sport. And if you don't have that team, it's boring because that's the team because that team provides a great storyline both ways. Either they continue dominance or they make a great storyline for someone else because they're able to beat them. And then that becomes the team you start to root for. That's what happened with the Bengals when they took down the Chiefs because the Chiefs felt pretty unbeatable. Bengals go in, make the run, and go to the Super Bowl, and almost everyone was rooting for them in that Super Bowl. Do you remember the hype around Joe Burrow in that game?
Yes.
It was massive, man. It was huge. And the hype doesn't happen if Allen picks off Mahomes and then Burrow picks off Allen in the conference championship. The hype doesn't become the same.
That's a great point.
You have to have these teams to create the storyline. And right now, the Chiefs are just an awesome, awesome version of the next dynasty.
Well, to me, that's why the NBA at this point is boring now. I mean, we've had the villain in LeBron for such a long time. And, you know, LeBron, I mean, he's not on a true contending team. You had the Warriors, and now you don't have anybody. You know, I think that's why I just kind of, as a casual fan, lost interest in that. You don't have that villain. Need that villain. You have that villain. My entire life, that villain was Tom Brady. You know, that was the team that everybody wanted to get. Like you mentioned, the target on your back. He's gone now. How about this? In 2 seasons now where people considered it almost a retool year where some counted the Kansas City Chiefs out. You lose Tyreek Hill, you know, just a couple of other losses here and there if they win the Super Bowl last year. This season, I mean, we saw that offense just did not look good for most of this season. The receivers were just not there, and they turned it on the postseason, and they win again. We've said this so many times, especially when they played the Bills. If you're not going to beat them, when the hell are you going to do it? Because if you didn't do it this year, they're gonna have money to spend. They're gonna get Mahomes another receiver. I'm sure they'll replace the tackle. They're gonna do this and that. They got guys coming back. When the hell are you gonna beat this team? And on the other side too, Kevin, that core for San Francisco, they're all coming back. And we could very much have another rematch, and you know the third matchup between these two teams.
And I talked about it last week with Brady and the sustainability of it. Now with Mahomes, the factors that in the near future hurt him is one, he's going to lose Andy Reid at some point.
Do you think it's now? Do you think he loses?
No, I think he gets Reid for one more year.
Okay.
And then even if you hire Spagnuolo, who we both love, you have a serious problem with Spagnuolo being hired because Andy Reid calling the plays is part of the magic. And how much longer do you have Travis Kelce? I don't think you get more than another 2 years out of Kelce.
At an elite level either.
Exactly.
How long do you get Kelce at an elite level for?
And here's when we compare Kelce to Gronk, here's the difference with Kelce getting older and Gronk getting older. Gronk in the playoff run against the Rams and then later the Buccaneers Super Bowl run, the Super Bowl run where they beat the Rams with the Patriots, Super Bowl run where the Bucs won. The Gronk was a highly effective and willing blocker, and he made a couple massive plays, especially in the game against the Chiefs at Arrowhead in the conference championship, that I watched and I said, man, this guy, if he could block for the next 15 years and not even go out to receive and catch, you'd take him because he
Yeah,
was just
like
an extra lineman. Kelsey doesn't
Kittle is.
have that. Exactly. Kelsey doesn't have that. So once Kelsey is not able to produce at the high level in the receiving game, he's done. And listen, he's put in probably the greatest pass catching career of all time for tight ends. So it's no knock on him. His style's just not the get down and dirty blocker at tight end. It's not traditional. I don't know how much longer Mahomes gets with these guys, but they're a huge part of his.
That's why you got to keep winning. That's why you got to go three-peat.
Exactly.
That's what, if you want to become the GOAT, win another one, get to 4. Reed and Kelsey leave. Okay, you're at 4. You're gonna stumble. You're so good. You're gonna stumble your way into 1, possibly 2 more to get to 5 or 6. They're so good. What do you do now? Do you think they bring back Bieniemy? You think they let Nagy start calling plays? I think Reed cares so much about this organization at this point, and Mahomes, where he almost would set somebody up for the life after him and get somebody ready, almost mentor one of these guys to become the next head coach and play caller of this team. That's something I would be, if I was Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's something I would 100% be thinking about, even if Spags takes over. And then have Nagy possibly start calling plays next year, get a feel of it. What do you think of that?
So I don't think that Reed would give up play calling, but I agree with you. He's going to have to start easing somebody in. And I think naturally coaches just mentor assistants, but you're going to have to seriously ease somebody in, because there's Andy Reid's level of genius, and then there's everybody else that calls offensive plays right now. And Bieniemy can't replicate that. Nagy can't replicate that, and Reed just makes it so. I mean, Reed, if you look at the Alex Smith years, even it's incredible what he did.
Yeah.
It's incredible how he turned Alex Smith into a highly productive quarterback. Alex Smith, for some reason we've talked about Alex Smith like a numerous amount of times.
We love Alex Smith
on here. We love Alex Smith, but
and over the phone too. All week
we love
Alex Smith.
Yeah, we've actually been big Alex Smith week for us. Big Alex Smith 2 weeks for us. But he turned Alex Smith, who was a total bust, and Harbaugh started the process, but Andy Reid took him to a new level. I mean, they were really productive offense that year that they lost the Titans at Arrowhead in the playoffs. They won the AFC West. But he's going to have to pass it off to someone. And I tell you, I really think there's an outside chance that once Andy Reid's gone, it's Doug Peterson calling the plays. I said it last week. I think that things aren't going great in Jacksonville for Doug Peterson. It's not this year. They did not take the step we all thought they would.
No,
and especially me. I mean, dude,
I was going to say, especially you.
I had him playing. You know how much of an idiot they made me look like? I had him playing in the game today. I had him playing in the game today, crazy. And they haven't played in 5 weeks. And I had Trevor Lawrence win an MVP. Did he throw 20 touchdowns? I mean, my
He's
God.
Daniel Jones.
Dude, stop.
He might be. But I think Mahomes is also at that point where, he's so advanced, he's so smart, where it's almost like a situation where Brady went to Tampa, and listen, Bruce Arians, respected guy, whatever you want to say. I mean, Brady, for the most part, is running the show there, and, basically it's his offense. It's Brady's offense at that point.
Yeah.
I think Mahomes is going to start to get to a point, too, where I'm not saying the coach doesn't mean anything, but he's been in this offense for so long. It's all he knows is this Andy Reid style and system, and it works. Maybe Mahomes is going to be able to, as long as there's somebody with, common knowledge of the system there, he'll be able to run it with somebody else. He's getting to that point.
Well, I love that you bring that up, because I looked throughout history to situations such as that one, and you have recently, I'd bring up Peyton Manning, I'd bring up Aaron Rodgers, and I'll bring up Tom Brady. Brady goes to Tampa, calls his own offense, as you just said. Bruce Arians admitted a bunch of times that Brady controlled the offense and that he gave him a lot of control. And I think Arians is a terrific offensive coach. I was very high on Arians when he went there. I did not think the drop-off from the elite to Arians was significant to stunt Brady. And that was one of my big points that year. But then Byron Leftwich, who got so much credit during the Brady season, ends up being awful, and he gets fired. Nobody even hired him. He's through 2 coaching cycles now where he doesn't get brought onto a staff. So that's big. Peyton Manning leaves Indianapolis, obviously got injured, goes to Denver, and who are his play callers? Gary Kubiak and Adam Gase, who, respect to Gary Kubiak because he was a solid head coach, won a Super Bowl, went to 2, but Adam Gase sucked and he called the plays. And the second he left, he never scored a touchdown again, 6 years of coaching after. And Gary Kubiak was not that good. He was really nothing too special,
Right.
Good enough to get a head coaching job, but how many guys that can't call plays are good enough to get head coaching jobs? And Aaron Rodgers, which there's a negative context to this situation for me because we both think Matt LaFleur is a really good offensive coach, but I'm convinced he called the plays for his MVP seasons the last few years in Green Bay. I don't think that LaFleur had much say in the game plan, much say in the offense, which is a big part of why I don't think they got along at all. And obviously, if Nate Hackett had a hand in anything, Rodgers might be the greatest quarterback of all time for winning 2 MVPs with him. So those are just 2 or 3 examples of the other 3 guys. Once you get to a certain point where Mahomes, I'm sorry, I'm yapping here, but Mahomes understands Reid's system, I'd imagine, better than Nagy, better than Bieniemy, better
Any
than
coach they could bring in.
Yeah, all these guys that have worked with them, Mike Peterson, all these guys that have been there for that era, there's nobody they could bring in that knows that system better than Mahomes does. So,
Man, how about that? Kafka coming back and continuing the dynasty in Kansas City.
Kafka returned. That would be something, man.
That would be hysterical. Leaves from getting bullied from Dable and goes to continue the Kansas City dynasty, rattles off 3 more.
He was so highly regarded with the Chiefs, man. I remember when they interviewed him, I was like, this is a home run. I would hire this guy to be a head coach right now. And now he's getting bullied by Brian Dable. And they had the war. I told you this the other day, man. You could thank me. The Jets saved them from having an historically bad offense this year. And you won't hear about it because the Jets were like, hold my beer type of season. But the Giants were so bad on offense this year.
Dable, the offensive coach, is blaming Kafka.
Whatever. It's a mess there. We can't even talk about it. We can't talk about New York teams on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yes, we can. New jerseys for the New York Jets.
Oh, God.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. What a day to announce it. I can't believe it.
Yeah, way to steal the show.
It's a win for you, Kevin. It's an absolute win for you. Those jerseys, as long as they keep the throwbacks, are disgusting. Get rid of them.
So much for Taylor Swift getting the spotlight. Woody stole it all right after the game.
Yeah. What'd you think of Taylor tonight? You think she got too much love from the cameras?
No, dude, I'm totally into it. I know one Taylor Swift song. I probably know more, but I know one off the top of my head. And I think it's cool seeing her and seeing families. I love seeing Purdy's family. I love seeing Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
I just enjoy seeing the fan interactions with the game. And listen, I'm a tennis fan, so I'm going to go in a direction here. A big tennis fan. And tennis markets their celebrity audience really well, and it makes it an attraction to watch events like Wimbledon, the US Open. Some fans will turn it on and say, who's at the match tonight? I'm fine with the NFL doing that because the NFL is the biggest sport in the country. It's the biggest sport and this is not even close to comparing football to soccer around the world because it's just not even close. Yeah. There's no American sport, but it is the biggest sport in the biggest sports country in the world. So I'm fine with it being a celebrity show. Taylor Swift's probably shown for less than 45 seconds throughout the course of the game, but it might be 25 times for 1 second or a second and a half. When you really count it up, she's not on the screen for that long. I still see the game fine. I don't care that they cut out. It's what it is for me. I remember the game. I don't remember how many times I saw Taylor Swift and Ice Spice and
Blake Lively. A weird combo.
That's an odd combo. It was an interesting booth. Miles Teller was up there as well in the booth.
Well, Teller's wife is there or girl.
Oh, is that wife. So?
Yeah, they're friends. And I'm a huge fan of Blake Lively. I love Blake Lively. She's in the box there too. That's great. So
yes,
it was a good time.
Good
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. I don't either. I do. I have a problem with the crazy fans, as you saw my, the Hardlines post this weekend. But
yes,
that got taken down on TikTok.
Sports Talk.
Jesus, these people on TikTok, they
TikTok
reported it, I guess.
Chinese government trying to censor you.
Yeah, censoring our Swifty content.
That's not
But
right, man.
Kevin, what did you think of? I'm a big sports media guy, so let's get nerdy for a minute.
It's good nerdy.
The My Way intro early on with the family members. Did you happen to catch this?
I caught it. I wish I was able to hear it better because the room was really loud. But I
Okay,
caught it. I liked it a lot.
excellent.
That was a
Excellent
really
job by
nice
CBS.
because the families make these players personified. They humanize them,
Mhm.
and it's, hey, they didn't just show up here in the NFL. There's a journey, there's a family, there's a path to this, especially for Brock Purdy, man. Think about his parents for the last few years. I'm really upset about that Brock Purdy had to lose this game, and
I'm heartbroken.
we were both rooting for both quarterbacks in this. We each enjoy watching both quarterbacks, but I'm upset that Brock Purdy lost because the story, his family, and you could tell that it's a really good feel. And I wish he could have walked away with a win here. He couldn't. He didn't play well enough to do it. So
No.
that's that. Do you think that there's anything in Shanahan's? But first of all, I'm going to go back to last year. Ultimate mistake. San Francisco not trying to heavily engage for Aaron Rodgers. Ultimate mistake.
Okay.
Because I did think at that time they needed to not rely on Purdy, because it's just, what if he ended up not being good and he ended up being Mr. Relevant and everything was a fluke? That's not the case. They're probably better off now if they didn't send a first-round pick, to maybe 2 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers, because they would have had to send more because it was an NFC rival.
Yes.
So that exists. They're better off in hindsight. But Shanahan's got that fascination with Kirk Cousins. I don't know why. I mean, he's totally obsessed with Kirk Cousins because of their time in Washington. They're not replacing Purdy with Cousins. They are at Purdy's worst. I think they're the same quarterback. But do you think there's anything in Shanahan or Lynch's mind right now where they're kind of saying, Purdy's been a fun story, but if we want to get serious, we have to do what the Rams did?
No, because you would have done it with Rodgers. You would have done it going to grab Aaron Rodgers. And if you didn't do that, then I don't know what the hell you're doing. I mean, what quarterback's going to be? You're not going to bring in Russell Wilson or, like you mentioned, Kirk Cousins to come in here and replace Brock Purdy. I believe this, and I might be seeing it through, some crazy lenses. These glasses might just have Brock Purdy's face all over it. I truly believe that we are starting to see the development of one of the best quarterbacks in the league. This is only year 2. I want to see what happens next season. We have a fantastic offensive mind in Kyle Shanahan. Brock Purdy's only going to develop and get better. And they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl next year. I mean, the odds-on favorite. They're plus 500. That's not big. I mean, they're the favorite to win the Super Bowl next season with potentially Brock Purdy. I mean, that's who's lined up to start. So I think Brock has to continue to develop. And Kevin, the sky's the limit. If you're connected to this coaching staff, to this general manager, to this coach and general manager for your career, who knows how many Super Bowls he can win? I'm not comparing him to Tom Brady, but it's almost like that arc where, Brady was not, like we mentioned before, he was not this elite quarterback early on. He had great defenses. He had really good coaching, and he made the plays when he had to. But the numbers, you compare him to Mahomes. Mahomes is much better through, these first 5 seasons here. So I think Purdy's kind of on this track where he doesn't have the championships, but they're starting to develop. And I think we're really starting to see the development of one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I'm serious, dead serious.
I don't want to go that far because I still think there's a lot to be desired with Purdy in a couple big games this year. In a couple big games this year, man, this team was not great in big games. We start with the Ravens game, obviously a blowout, Purdy's worst game of the year. Yeah. But then you get to the playoffs. The last 3 games for them offensively, I was not impressed with.
No, the entire postseason, I was not. No,
they survived in 2 of them. They lose today. 3 games, which, none of them they should have won. They shouldn't have beat Detroit. Dan Campbell handed them that on a silver platter. You can't convince me otherwise. And Green Bay was a rookie mistake from Jordan Love away from furthering, extending that game, and then we'll
Yep.
see what happens. I hate to do
This
what
was
if.
this was the game that they probably out of the 3 should have won in
Yeah.
terms of like the game not being handed to them because they probably were in most control of this one compared to the other 2.
It did feel, I mean, it's just crazy to think back because the whole game you felt like they were in control of this. It felt that they were going to be able to win this. Shanahan felt pretty prepared. His team felt pretty prepared.
Yeah.
And then they had some moments, they had some drives that I was not thrilled with the coaching, but you can't put the game on just one person. I still think it goes back to something you said about how it feels like it's just tough to overcome and control Reed, Mahomes, Kelsey, and this Chiefs defense for 60 plus minutes. It's not easy to do that.
Unless you're putting them away like you had the chances to do.
Exactly.
This defense was great. I think specifically the pass rush was great.
Oh, well, if they
all
won,
night.
if they won, I would have given the MVP to Bosa. I don't even know if he recorded a sack. He was a monster tonight.
I was going to ask you that. Who should have got it? Would have you given it to McCaffrey?
It probably would have been McCaffrey because he leaves the game with 30 for 160 and a touchdown overall.
Yeah.
So you probably end up with McCaffrey. And if they win, maybe or let's just say the Chiefs went turnover on downs in overtime and lose at the end. So there's no other touchdown for the 49ers offense. So, I mean, I would have probably given it to McCaffrey. I think he would have got it. It's easier to give it to an offensive player, I guess.
Yeah. It's amazing. When Mahomes threw that interception, I looked at people I was supposed to game with. I'm like, this game's over. I'm like, they're going to win. I'm like, this is the 49ers season. They're finally going to get it done. They're finally going to win a Super Bowl. And I can't believe after watching parts of this game that we're sitting here and we're saying Chiefs again. Chiefs have done it for a second straight year.
Yep. And how about Mecole Hardman punching in the game winner?
Does that hurt? Does that hurt at all? I gotta ask.
It doesn't hurt me. It would hurt if one. All right. So you know how I am with the Jets. I almost have like a bias in the opposite direction with the Jets.
You're very fair Jet fan.
I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh man, we made a great move cutting Hardman." That's like Hardman sucks.
Yeah,
that's what. If he went to KC, if he went to KC and turned into Tyreek Hill, I'd be like, "Shit, man." I mean, we really couldn't find a play for this guy. But I will say this about Hardman. I don't know if I've ever seen a player get screwed over so bad by a new team. They didn't even try to use him at all, and he handled it very professionally. You didn't hear a word from him about about wanting to leave. He
just goes to the agent. He's like, "Tell him to release me."
And I will say, it's a brave move to go back to the team that let you walk.
Yeah.
That is not something that I think many players are fond of doing. A team lets you walk. They didn't have interest in bringing you back. The team that drafted you, I think there's a little bit of spite there probably, or a little bit angry at them.
Definitely.
And Hardman goes back and helps them win a Super Bowl, whether he had a big impact on it or not. But Hardman punches in that touchdown. It would be a little painful, I guess, if he was any good. He's not.
Yeah, he still stinks. But let me just say this: if Rodgers was the quarterback of this team, it was a good signing. I mean, we saw Hardman be successful in many ways for Kansas City and their run before this season. Now he was definitely lesser than this year, but we've seen him be successful. I thought that was a good signing for a Jets team and Aaron Rodgers. It really did.
Does it hurt you seeing Richie James? He win the Super Bowl?
Almost fumbled the ball, man. That was almost bad. That's almost really bad. Big Richie James guy, man. I don't know why we let him go.
Did he lead the Giants in receptions last year?
Yeah, he did something. He was really good for the Giants last year.
Well, he really had a couple fumbles. He had a couple fumbles on return last year. I remember that. A couple special teams blunders for the Giants.
Solid player.
But hey, man, guy's making it right now.
I'm almost not a little jealous of Spags. It's funny. Gary Myers, he writes for, I think, the Daily News. He put out a tweet today. He goes, "Hindsight's 2020, but the Giants probably should have just, taken the interim tag off of Spagnuolo when they hired Shermer in 2018." Like, okay, bro, 4 years, 5, 6 years later, we're going
Thanks,
on.
man.
This is great, dude.
And Spags might not be a good head coach. He might be a Wink Martindale kind of guy. He's a way better defensive coordinator than Wink Martindale, and that's not a knock on Wink. It's just Spags is one of a kind defensive coordinator. But I don't think he's a head coach. He failed as a head coach. And some guys just are great at controlling their side of the ball, and that's it. Normally that happens with defensive guys, because if you can't develop a quarterback, and if you can't find someone that can develop a quarterback, you're or not even a quarterback, just an offense, a competent offense, you're totally screwed. You're done, man.
So happy for Spag. I mean, I really am. I mean, I'm genuinely happy for Steve Spagnuolo. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the Giant connection.
Apparently, a lot of the Chiefs players during media week were wearing you know how they have the Super Bowl jumpsuits, the gray jumpsuits that the NFL has them wear? A lot of them underneath the zip were wearing "In Spags We Trust."
Really?
On their t-shirt. I heard that this morning. So that's a cool one. You could tell how much, and even if that wasn't true, you could tell how much the team loves Spagnuolo. I mean,
how could you not?
How could you not? He's a great leader. He's a fierce coordinator. He's not a pushover players coach, but in a way, those guys are the players coaches. Those are the guys you want to play for. And I think he's just done an awesome job. Second half, he totally ruined Shanahan's night in the second half.
Yeah, it hurts Shanahan. You watch that game, it hurts watching him how he was outcoached.
Yeah.
Again, I'm looking at my notes here. We haven't mentioned this guy's name, Fred Warner. He always is flying all over the field all night. These guys were fast as all hell.
I wanted to mention this because I have been on the record saying the most valuable defensive player in the league is Fred Warner.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a guy I'd rather have on my defense, because there are a lot of edge rushers. You see that Micah Parsons clip the other day about TJ Watt's not a top 5 edge rusher or pass rusher.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
It's kind of crazy. And then you hear the 5 or 6 names, and I'm not saying TJ Watt. I'm not saying I agree with that take, but you see those 5 or 6 names he lists, and you say, all right, they're all pretty close. Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, Aaron Donald,
Crosby,
Nick Bosa, Crosby. They're all pretty close. And there's 10 or so guys that are in that area. And then with Fred Warner, it's Fred Warner and then all the other linebackers.
Yeah.
And nobody's close. And how about this? 9 seconds to go in regulation. The Chiefs have a shot to throw a quick fade for a touchdown. 9 seconds to go. They've got a timeout. They're going to run one more play. Who do you think they're going to go to? Kelsey. They line him up out wide. There's one team in the league that can put a middle linebacker out there with them. And it's San Fran, one-on-one. They know the fade's coming, and he gives them no chance to complete a pass. No chance.
Yeah.
It was textbook, like Ed Reed coverage, man. It was unbelievable. They throw this guy out wide. Tell me one other linebacker that you've ever watched that would get placed out wide with the best tight end in the league with goal to go from the 10, or maybe it was 1st and 10 from the 11, with 9 seconds left with the Super Bowl on the line. Ray Lewis wouldn't have gotten that. Luke Kuechly wouldn't have gotten that. They'd put the top corner out there with him, and they'd probably shadow a safety. It was, to be able to do that with a player, what a weapon.
Yeah, that was crazy. He made like he was on glue. He was like him on glue. It was an excellent play, excellent coverage, 100%. I want a couple of coaching decision questions for you. Yeah. Shanahan on the 4th and I think 3, where Kittle got it, where he reached over. It was almost pretty close.
I would have kicked.
It was, what was it? Was it 13-10 there? What was it?
It was 13-10 Chiefs.
I would have kicked that to tie it.
It ended up working out. They scored a touchdown.
So scored a touchdown.
But I would have tied it, because that brings me back to my thoughts on Dan Campbell, and it's the same feeling as the 17-point game versus the 14-point game. I just wouldn't take the opportunity to give any extra momentum. I think the risk of giving extra momentum to the better team is, and maybe you want to say the Niners were the better team, whatever. The Chiefs are the defending champions. So I don't want to give any possible extra momentum to the defending champions and the best quarterback in the world.
Yeah.
So that's how I felt with the Lions 2 weeks ago. That's how I felt there, because kicking the field goal, whether it was a 17-point game, the Lions could have taken momentum out with that.
Yeah.
But the Chiefs, there's no change in momentum at a 13-13 game. It's kind of just an even, all right, let's all go play our game. That was a risky one. And Shanahan's actually not an aggressive head coach. He's one of the more conservative head coaches.
He kicks it.
He kicks. He has kicked this year. No head coach kicked more from 4th and 3 or less than Shanahan.
That's interesting.
And he leans on the more, I don't know if that's by percentage or total attempts, but he leans on the more conservative side of calling 4th downs, and definitely not an analytics driven guy. He takes the points. Maybe that comes from having a father who coached in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, where it was a more conservative game. He might have learned that, take the points mentality, which I agree with, but I would have went for it there. I mean, I would have picked it there.
I mean, if Dan Campbell was Mike Shanahan's son, he would have disowned him. But the way he goes for 4th down.
Yeah, but then we also wouldn't have to worry about Ben Johnson leaving, because Dan Campbell would be able to call a play.
Yeah, you're right about that. But I'm sitting there during that, and I was like, this is ballsy. This is ballsy. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I don't want to have to rip Shanahan like we ripped apart Dan Campbell 2 weeks ago. I don't want to do that. I'm a Shanahan guy. Did not feel like doing that tonight. Good thing we didn't. He got it, but
we didn't have to.
And then 6 seconds left in regulation. You're down the 3, 19-16. Andy Reid decides, let's just kick it. Let's not play anymore here. Would have you taken one more shot at the end zone?
No.
Or am I crazy? Just kick the...
I wouldn't have, because God forbid you throw one to the 2 and they're able to wrap a guy up for 4 or 5 seconds. There's just way too much can go wrong with the new, maybe with the old overtime rules. I would have taken the risk because I would have said, we might not get the ball back if we kick here. We might not touch it again. So let me run the risk here with 6 seconds left. I might have done that in that scenario, but in the reality that you're touching the ball again no matter what, I'm gonna take overtime. And let me throw this one to you. If you're in overtime in a game like that, say Niners go down the field and score fairly easily, 7 points, it's 26-19.
Yeah.
You get the ball, you go down and score. Once you kick the extra point, it's sudden death.
Yeah.
Would you go for 2?
Oh, God. So the new overtime was very confusing, and I get to why I was really confused in a second. They did not do a good job on the broadcast of explaining this, what I'm about to say. But
wow, what a shock. Tony Romo couldn't explain. and Gene Steratore, who, I mean, why are we're throwing refs into every booth now for multiple millions of dollars. For what reason, man? I can read the rule book. Gene Steratore has never come on and told me something on the broadcast that I didn't know already.
Well, when he goes, when Jim goes, Gene, what do you think? Jim, tell me what the effing rule book says. Tell me what you've watched football for 40 years, Jim. You've been doing games. You know, okay? We do not have to kick it to Gene. Please, for the love of God.
Actually, a lot of these guys get it wrong in the booth too with the refs. I don't know if you ever pick up on that, but Dean Blandino and whoever the white-haired guy is from Fox, his name, Mike Pereira, these guys botch some of these too, because the refs do not agree with the call that they're making up in the booth.
You know, Tony knows when he goes, and you can almost hear it in his voice. Gene, what do you think? Like he's being forced, like there's a gun to his head when he says, Gene, what do you think?
CBS is paying Steratore $2 million to sit around on Zoom during all these games every Sunday.
He wasn't there. He had to have been there tonight.
He was there tonight. He's there for the CBS playoff games, but during the season, he's just on a video call with every CBS game.
Yeah. Yes, because he's in like the big like whatever he's in like a studio somewhere for CBS. Yeah. So what if I went for it? Probably. I think I would have. When it becomes sudden death overtime, I think maybe I would have definitely considered going for it. How about this? I did not know if the first overtime period ended that because you know how they didn't rush it, like where the Chiefs
Yes.
had the ball, they didn't rush it. I did not. I thought it was a whole nother like, oh, we're gonna flip the coin again.
No, it's a
I thought that,
four-quarter
like it was
game.
almost like a half ended.
Yeah, it's like a
So
four-quarter game.
so I did not. Is that the new overtime rule? Or is that just all overtime rules?
That's always been the playoff overtime rules, but it was never even discussed because there's no way in an overtime, obviously it's possible, but rationally in an overtime, there's no way that 3 drives go by without a field goal. So that was all you needed was a field goal to win. So now it's different because you have an opportunity to go
Go
back
to the
and
next
forth.
period, to the next
Yeah.
quarter. I was very confused. I'm like, why are they not calling a timeout here? Why are we not stopping the clock? I'm thinking this game's gonna, like they're gonna just kick the field goal here and that's it. Bad on my part. Wasn't explained though. Was not explained
No, they haven't done a
until
good
the
job
end.
explaining it, and I read that it was like 3 pages when they flipped it when they changed it. I read that at nauseum to really understand what
Yeah.
the hell was happening after
Right.
the Josh Allen situation, and the Bills fans cried, and they still can't win. But that's a conversation for another day. And I read that a lot, so I understood that each team touched the ball. It's a 4-quarter game.
Right.
And basically, if the team that doesn't receive, so if the team that kicks is leading after their possession, it's over.
Gotcha.
So that's how and then if it's tied after the first 2 possessions, it's whoever scores a point next.
What did you think of the job Romo did tonight? You think he had a good game? You think he or just like kind of more of the same? I think it was more of
He's
the same here.
more of the same. He was better than I think he was 2 weeks ago. But
Okay.
still, I
It was a big
hate
game for him. It was a big game for
it's a
him.
big game for him, and now with Greg Olsen available, I would love to see that get swapped. I know Romo makes an ungodly amount of money, so
17 million a year.
who knows? Yeah, but here's something about Greg Olsen. Now that we're just rambling about the commentary,
Yeah.
Greg Olsen the way Fox does it is you get paid based on you don't get a contract with a salary. You get paid based on the team that you're in, and every team has a set value per year. If you're on, it's a 1-year deal every year. So if you're on their first team, you get 10 million.
Unless you're Tom Brady.
Brady's an exception because he's like a way beyond color commentator. He's an ambassador for the company, so he's got the whole contract of 37 million a year. But so Olsen gets 10 million a year with Burkhardt. But when he drops down to the second team, he goes from 10 to 3 million a year, which huge difference and a big enough difference for Olsen to say, I'm out. And you know what? With the lack of popularity that Collinsworth has and that Romo has accrued over the last few years, I could see Olsen ending up at either of those 2 spots for next year.
Now, let me ask you this. Is Nance retiring? Was that Nance's last Super Bowl or no?
Nance is like easing into retirement. So he retired from college basketball last year.
Right.
And I don't know, he might not do another Super Bowl again. So he might not know because CBS won't get it now for another 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's usually how it goes. But I could see, in 2028, we could absolutely see this game being on YouTube or Amazon or Peacock or something. So
that's crazy. Yeah.
So Nance might not get another one in his career.
Yeah.
Because Fox gets it, then NBC gets it. I think next year's NBC, and the following year's Fox. And then it could, by that time, who knows where it is? It's probably on Amazon by that point.
It's got to be Olsen though. I would replace with Olsen too.
Olsen's
I have
great.
in my notes I wrote it's a big game. It's a big game for Tony Romo. So
Big game for Romo. I my issue with it is as a huge football fan, and I like to try to know, the 30, 35 guys on the team that play. There's a lot of great players in this game. And when I got to hear Mahomes in what was largely a defensive game,
yeah,
That bothers me. And I love Mahomes. I really do. I can't get enough of watching him. But when I got to hear that, it's just a pain because the Niners got a loaded defense. The Chiefs have a lot of really good players, especially in their offensive line. And I just don't hear about any of them.
Yeah.
And by the way, Chiefs, they got to get 2 new tackles, man. Donovan's, I know you said it a few times. Smith sucks, and Taylor he's going to be there, so figure it out. But he's not good either.
Ideally, I'd move Smith to the right side and find myself a new left tackle. I don't think Donovan Smith's that bad. I think he didn't have a good night.
He's not a left tackle, though. And I think Mahomes, he's not a good left tackle anymore. And I think Mahomes masks a lot of his flaws. I think a guy that can escape the pocket, that gets it out quick most of the time, and breaks a lot of sacks. He evades a lot of sacks. I think that helps Donovan Smith from being at that level of, oh my God, this guy's giving up every single sack tonight, to, all right, he's giving up pressure, but we're still all right. Because you really only notice when the guy's getting sacked over and over again.
Yeah. Miss Tooney a little bit in the run game. I mean, the 49ers, for the most part, I mean, Pacheco broke off a couple of nice ones, especially late, but I mean, they did a pretty good job stopping the run. They couldn't stop Mahomes running, but they did do, 3.3 yards a carry for Pacheco. So they did a good job there up front. Hargrave made some huge plays.
He did. He showed up today. Chase Young had a big sack right.
Yeah, Chase Young played good, and they did mix in Gregory too. Gregory had a nice game. Like you mentioned, the tackle had a rough game. Both edges. Mahomes had pressure in his face almost all night.
Every play, he had pressure in his face. It felt a little bit like the Tampa Super Bowl.
Oh, I wrote that down. I said, this is the Tampa game all over again.
It felt that way.
They flip it. They
did it, man. But the difference really is Tampa kept scoring all night. Yeah. And San Fran didn't.
But they had the opportunity. Kevin, they had the opportunity to put this game almost away.
They did.
It's never away with Mahomes. But I mean, you go up 14-0, 17-3. I mean, that game feels a little bit out of reach. He throws the pick to come out of the half. I mean, we're talking about a completely different game that you could have controlled. Maybe if Shanahan's calling better plays in the second or third quarter, you're running the football a little bit more. It almost feels like he's trying to outsmart everybody by not running the football. But tough. Tough. That's a tough one.
It was.
That's one I can't sleep over. I'm watching this game and I'm saying, if my team's in this game, I don't think I could watch it. I want to puke watching it. You know what? I'm not even a Niner fan.
Yeah, no, that's a rough loss, especially when you lost to the same team a few years ago in a close game. You lose another heartbreaker this year. They've gotten a lot of heartbreak these last few years with a lot of great memories and fun teams. But when you don't get that ring, that's how you begin to remember the era. You remember Kittle and Ayuk and Debo, McCaffrey, Purdy, Garoppolo. You remember all those guys as the guys who couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, remember Parcells' speech to the Giants in the locker room after, when he said something along, it's one of the best post-game speeches I've ever seen, because he just won the Super Bowl, and he said something along the lines of, the rest of your life, no one can ever tell you that you can't, because you did it. And that goes a long way, because when McCaffrey comes up for Hall of Fame, when Purdy comes up for Hall of Fame, when any of these guys do, well, no rings, got there, couldn't win. Shanahan, especially Shanahan as a coach, when he comes up for Hall of Fame, couldn't win the big game. So
this core is going to win one. I'm so confident in that this core in San Francisco is going to get one. I don't know if it's next season, but they're going to get one.
I hope so, man. I like the group. I like the group a lot. I think that they're in for a tough. I thought this was a big year for them to try and win it, especially the way the game went. So they're in for a tough next couple of years. The NFC is going to start getting good. You're going to have the Packers back. You're going to have the Rams. You still have the Lions. You're going to have in your division, I think Arizona is just a competitive enough team to possibly spoil a season for you, or go on a nice little run there. Seattle could turn a corner here with a good draft and new coaching staff. Then you have the Cowboys still, the Eagles still. The NFC South is a dumpster fire. They couldn't play in the Big Ten West. But other than that, I mean, the NFC is going to start getting good here. And San Fran's going to be
weak. The NFC was weak this year. And there's a target on their back. I mean, Philadelphia, I mean, you got Fletcher Cox posting on Instagram, already tonight, calling out Debo. There's a target on their back already in the NFC, and it was a weak weak season in the NFC, can't get it done here. So it feels like the saying of the season. If it's not then, if it's not now, when the hell are you going to do it?
Yep. Them, Ravens, Niners,
Bills,
Lions. I mean, dude, Lions.
Yeah,
And then we're going to
forget
wrap
about
this up here. But the Lions, you got 89-year-old fans here saying we need something.
Yeah,
You get there,
never.
you're up by 40 points, and you don't take a field goal, and then you lose. I mean, this is just.
I'm done. I'm done as a fan.
And then that's how I said that before the year with the Jets. If they're not going to win now, then when? And
when the hell are you going to do it?
And they sucked. They sucked.
That wasn't a good season. Yeah.
No, I'm almost glad to leave this one in the past. The Jets fan in me is glad this one's over, but the football fan in me is always miserable on this day. Really, 2 weeks ago, though, I get upset because that when I was
Kevin, not that you put it in my mind, but I really thought about it. Tonight's game sucks. I mean, the atmosphere is terrible. You got a bunch of rich, snazzy people in the building. Nobody gives a rat's ass about football other than the families in the building. So it really does suck. It's all about the spectacle of the game and whatnot. It's not really about football. So as much as I've already seen it, I really took notice to it tonight. And it's unenjoyable. There are some big plays made. You get barely nothing from the crowd. I mean, it's just disgusting.
It is. It's a rough one, man. It is. That's how we're going to wrap it, though. Nice little statement from Merlo. That ends the Sunday recap for this season. Back next year, week 1, of course. We're not going to go anywhere, and we'll still be coming to you every week in a different
big
capacity.
plans coming.
So look out for us. We'll be on next Sunday or Monday, however it works out. But we will be back. Not with a live, probably, but with some sort of content from the two of us. And make sure you follow Playbook. Make sure you follow the Hardline Sports Talk. Make sure to follow Elephants and Donkeys. Make sure to check out the main thing. Make sure to just look at BTO Media and do a lot of nice stuff with it. Even say mean stuff to us. We enjoy the mean stuff. Mike,
like the mean stuff.
Thoughts?
No. Incredible football season and excited for the future. Excited for baseball.
Great season. See you in the next one.